You were never born burdened by self-rejection. That's a truth seldom spoken aloud, the gnawing feeling that shadows your every step, the quiet conviction that you are flawed, insufficient, unworthy of genuine love did not originate inside you. It was implanted, layer by layer, through the words spoken to you, the silent glances, the invisible scripts handed down by those who came before. Shame is not an innate condition. It's a lesson taught in whispers and silences, a poison distilled drop by drop, infecting your sense of self until you start living a life built on a lie about who you really are. This lie has a name: toxic shame. Not the kind of shame that warns us to respect boundaries or encourages humility, but a corrosive shame that tells you the problem isn't what you did, but who you are. That your very existence is a defect to be hidden, a burden to be endured. To survive this, you learn to wear masks. You crafted versions of yourself, versions that would be likable, safe, and acceptable. But with every mask worn, the distance grew between you and your true essence. There is a perspective, grounded in the harsh realities of nature, that sees shame not as a natural warning sign, but as a tool wielded by social structures. It's a method of control, designed to tame instincts, to regulate bodies, to enforce values that deny life itself. Shame's purpose is domestication, to make you bow your head, mute your joy, turn the vibrant yes of life into a timid whisper. But life in its rawest form does not desire to be tamed. It calls not for correctness but for creativity. It invites you to break free from the false gods that have shaped your understanding, to say yes to yourself with boldness, to be reborn as a free spirit. This suffering, this toxic shame, distorts your self-image. It convinces you, often from the earliest years, that you are not lovable as you are. In response, a false self is born, a survival mechanism. This false self protects, but it also imprisons. It silences your vitality and fragments your identity. What's at stake is not just your peace of mind, it's your very ability to feel whole. This isn't a gentle consolation, it is a call to arms for those weary of masks, of constant molding, of hiding in plain sight. Here we will uncover the roots of the shame that binds you. We will dismantle the pillars that uphold the false self. And more importantly, we will illuminate a path back towards healing, reconnection, and reconstruction. But be warned, this path demands courage, the courage to face yourself without filters, to admit your wounds, and to relinquish the patterns that kept you accepted, but empty. Only when shame is confronted head-on does it begin to lose its grip. Only then can you start to remember who you truly are, and that realization changes everything. Shame is not merely an emotion. It is a carefully crafted project, an elaborate mechanism built over centuries to shape bodies, silence voices, and imprison minds. From the doctrines you learned in childhood to the impossible beauty ideals blasted through your screens, you have been told that you are flawed, that you must constantly correct yourself, that you are a mistake who must strive endlessly for approval. Yet nature, with brutal honesty, reveals a different truth. Traditional morality, especially the kind rooted in religious dogma, it did not emerge from pure goodness. Instead, it often sprang from resentment, from the powerless who could only judge because they could not act. This system, a morality of slaves, inverted the values of life. It celebrated sacrifice, obedience, and renunciation, while condemning instinct, power, desire, all the vibrant pulses that make us alive, as dirty, sinful, shameful. The more deeply you accept this, the more you become malleable, easily controlled. This repression of vitality creates an abyss within, a gulf between who you are and who you are told to be. That abyss is shame. It makes you avert your gaze, apologize for your existence, chase approval, even when it means betraying your deepest self. But life itself does not seek obedience, it demands wholeness. It urges you to embrace light and shadow, mistakes and desires, chaos and beauty. How, then, can you affirm life when all you were taught was to fear it? Shame castrates existence. It denies your creative power, and the more you try to fit into imposed standards, whether spiritual, aesthetic, or social, the further you drift from your truth. Moral repression crushes authenticity, turning it into guilt. You begin to carry burdens that aren't yours, debts that can never be repaid. This cycle begins early, when a child is told to behave, to suppress impulses, to silence tears and hide desire. This is the moment the self begins to fracture. Instead of growing freely, the child learns to monitor, censor, and hate themselves. This shame no longer passes like a wave, it becomes identity itself. It does not say you did wrong, it says you are wrong. Moral repression internalizes and you become your own executioner. But here's a brutal truth: none of this guilt is divine or inevitable. It was created to bend you. Recognition is the first step toward liberation, but awareness alone won't erase shame. It lurks deep within, camouflaged as habits, beliefs, and voices you call I. This is where the false self emerges, the persona you built to survive shame, the mask worn to gain acceptance. This false self is a fortress. It smiles when it aches, stays silent to avoid conflict, molds itself to please. It erases authenticity, fearing that being too much, too sensitive, too emotional, too bold, will lead to rejection. This adaptation is so effective that over time you mistake the mask for your true self, yet the false self is never enough. It may function socially, even win admiration, but it is always exhausted, anxious, disconnected. Maintaining the facade demands relentless effort, monitoring feelings, recalculating words, containing gestures, anticipating rejection. Toxic shame turns existing into navigating a minefield. Living this way is a slow extinguishing of the self. This is soul murder, not a phrase thrown lightly, but an apt description of what internalized shame does over time. It kills spontaneity, joy, curiosity, self-love. What remains is a hyper-rational shell, full of self-censorship, living on autopilot. A ghost performing social functions, but disconnected from presence, being, vibrancy. The false self cannot be dismantled with willpower, motivational slogans, or platitudes. It was built as a shield to survive pain and fear. Healing begins with recognizing its existence and the reason it emerged. As long as you believe your true self is broken, you will keep wearing the armor. You will keep living to avoid shame, not to live. And this is where the journey circles back to those ancient lies and values that taught you to hate yourself. We must question these inherited beliefs, confront the falsehoods passed down through generations. The false self is an internal prison, but there is a hammer waiting to shatter its bars. Destruction, however, is not mere rebellion, it is creation. It is the radical act of becoming the author of your own existence. Imagine building a fortress stone by stone to protect yourself from pain, but in time protection becomes prison. The key is lost and inside you are trapped, afraid to feel, to breathe, to be. At this intersection where psychological suffering meets existential crisis, different perspectives converge on the same diagnosis: the rupture between the individual and their essence. The poison is shame. The antidote is courage, courage to descend into your psyche, to meet the wounded child who was silenced, punished, unseen. Healing means rescuing this child, not to hide them behind new masks, but to let them breathe, speak, live. This path is painful. To return to your authentic self is to cross deserts of internalized shame, self-judgment, and emotional memory. It is to confront the voices inside that whisper: you are weak, you are too much, you don't deserve. These voices are echoes, not truth. Unmasking them and replacing them with compassion and acceptance rewrites your internal narrative. Healing is not erasing pain, it is affirming your presence. It is saying, this is me, all of me, and I am no longer ashamed. True freedom is embracing your full story, scars and all. Rescuing the inner child is not just personal, it is political, spiritual, existential. It breaks the logic of shame that says you are defective. It replaces it with a radical truth: you are whole, even when broken. You let go of perfection and embrace wholeness. You recognize vulnerability not as weakness but as the foundation of freedom. Yet healing is not enough. The inner child needs a new world to live in, a world where expression, creation, and existence come without fear. This world is built when you stop molding yourself to others' expectations, when you create your own values. The reconstruction of self is not merely healing past wounds, it is a conscious act of creation. Now is the moment to unite deep self-exploration, the destruction of false values and the healing of wounds, to become the free spirit, someone who refuses to bow to false gods, someone who crafts their own laws, not in rebellion but in conscious creation. To be free is to say yes to life, chaos, and all, to affirm yourself even if the world demands you hide. This is the path out of shame. It is not easy. It requires sacrifice, the risk of disappointing others, breaking old roles, facing judgment. But the cost of denial is far greater. No love is worth denying your essence. No acceptance is worth betraying your soul. True freedom begins when you stop trying to correct yourself, when you stop fitting into the molds of a broken world. When you decide to be real, your worth is not measured by conformity, but by your courage to assert yourself. Your body, your voice, your desires, they are life's rightful expressions. Living truthfully matters more than masks. To begin walking this path, you must first understand the magnitude of what you are up against. Shame is not a fleeting feeling. It is a systemic force woven into the very fabric of society, culture, and even your own psyche. It is the silent architect of your self-doubt, the shadow lurking beneath every achievement and every failure. It has taught you to shrink, to apologize, to disappear, not because you are inherently less than, but because that has been the strategy of those who sought control. But what if the opposite is true? What if your existence itself is a revolt? What if, beneath the layers of shame, beneath the conditioned responses and ingrained beliefs, there is a spark, an ember, that refuses to be extinguished? This spark is your authentic self, your core being, untouched by judgment, unscathed by rejection. It is the source of creativity, passion, and life itself. Reclaiming this spark requires more than courage. It demands patience, gentleness, and radical honesty. It asks you to sit with discomfort, to face the parts of yourself you have long hidden from, and to welcome them home. This is no small task, for shame thrives on avoidance and denial. The more you hide, the stronger it becomes. This is why the journey out of shame begins inward. It is a pilgrimage to the depths of your soul, a confrontation with the ghostly whispers of inadequacy that have shaped your story. It requires a willingness to bear witness to your pain without judgment, to hold yourself in compassion even when your mind insists you are unworthy. You may find yourself overwhelmed by the enormity of this process. You may feel lost, isolated, or tempted to retreat back into the safety of your masks. This is natural. The false self has been your protector for so long that letting it go feels like stepping into a void. But the void is not emptiness, it is space for healing, for growth, for transformation. As you begin to dismantle the walls of shame, you will encounter resistance, not only from within, but from the world around you. Shame is a collective construct, maintained by social norms, expectations, and fears. When you break free from these chains, you challenge not only your own conditioning but also the status quo. This can be frightening. You may face rejection, misunderstanding, or even hostility from those who cling to the old order. Yet this is the paradox of freedom. To be truly free, you must be willing to stand alone if necessary. You must be willing to embrace solitude, to trust in your own worth even when the world says otherwise. This is the crucible in which authenticity is forged. But solitude does not mean isolation. As you shed your masks, you will begin to attract those who see and honor your true self. You will find community among fellow travelers who have also dared to confront their shame. Together, you will create spaces of acceptance, safety, and growth, sanctuaries where vulnerability is strength and authenticity is celebrated. The reconstruction of self is an act of creation that goes beyond healing. It is the emergence of a new identity, one rooted not in fear or shame, but in love and truth. This new self does not seek approval, but instead radiates self-acceptance. It does not hide from the world, but engages with it openly, boldly, and with compassion. This process requires daily commitment. It is not a single breakthrough, but a series of small acts choosing honesty over pretense, self-care over neglect, courage over comfort. Each time you choose authenticity, you strengthen your true self and weaken the hold of shame. You may ask, how do I cultivate this courage? The answer lies in practice and presence. Begin by noticing the moments when shame arises. What triggers it? How does it feel in your body? Naming shame takes away some of its power. Bring curiosity to these moments rather than judgment. Next, practice self-compassion. Speak to yourself as you would to a dear friend, gently, kindly, without blame. Remember that shame is not your fault. It is a wound inflicted by forces beyond your control. Your task is to heal it, not to punish yourself for it. Mindfulness and meditation can be powerful tools on this journey. They help you observe your thoughts and feelings without getting lost in them. Over time, you learn that you are not your shame. You are the awareness behind it. This realization is liberating. It creates space between your experience and your identity. Another key step is setting boundaries. Shame often thrives in environments where your needs are ignored or dismissed. Learning to say no, to protect your time and energy, is an act of reclaiming your power. Boundaries tell the world that you matter, that your well-being is a priority. Healing also involves reconnecting with your body. Shame often disconnects you from your physical self, making you feel alien or ashamed of your appearance and sensations. Practices like yoga, dance, or simple movement can help you feel at home in your body again. This reconnection nurtures a sense of wholeness and presence. Creativity is another pathway to freedom. Shame stifles expression because it fears exposure. When you create, whether through art, writing, music, or any form of expression, you give voice to your truth. You reclaim parts of yourself that were silenced. Creativity is a declaration that you exist, that you have value, and that your inner world matters. Forgiveness, too, plays a crucial role, not just forgiveness of others, but forgiveness of yourself. Shame often lingers because you hold on to past mistakes or regrets. Forgiveness is not forgetting or excusing. It is releasing the burden of blame so you can move forward lighter. As you progress, you will notice shifts in your relationships. When you stop hiding and start showing your true self, some connections will deepen while others may fade. This natural process can be painful but necessary. Authentic relationships require authenticity from all parties. The inner child, the wounded, scared, and shamed part of you needs your presence and care. Nurture this child with love and patience. Speak words of reassurance and acceptance. Validate their feelings and needs. This inner dialogue transforms your relationship with yourself and sets a foundation for external healing. Spiritual traditions across the world speak to this journey. Many emphasize the importance of self-acceptance and the rejection of false shame. Whether through meditation, prayer, or ritual, these practices remind us that we are more than our wounds and fears. They invite us to embrace our inherent dignity and worth. Philosophically, this path challenges us to reconsider what it means to be human. Are we flawed beings to be corrected, or are we evolving creatures capable of transformation? The answer shapes not only how we see ourselves but how we live in the world. The liberation from shame is also a social act. As you heal, you become a beacon for others trapped in silence and fear. Your courage inspires change. It cracks open the collective shame that binds communities and cultures. Healing ripples outward. This is the power of authenticity. It is contagious. When you live truthfully, you make it easier for others to do the same. You become part of a movement toward collective liberation, a world where shame loses its grip and acceptance flourishes. Yet, remember that this is a lifelong process. Shame may reappear in new forms, triggered by life's challenges. The difference now is that you have tools, awareness, and strength to face it. You know you are not alone. The path of healing is not linear. There will be setbacks and struggles. Be gentle with yourself during these times. Each step back is also a step forward, for it teaches resilience and deepens wisdom. Ultimately, the journey out of shame leads to freedom, a freedom not granted by others, but claimed from within. It is the freedom to be yourself fully, without apology or disguise. Imagine waking each day feeling at home in your skin, unafraid to express your thoughts, feelings, and desires. Imagine relationships built on honesty and mutual respect. Imagine a life fueled by passion rather than fear. This is not fantasy, it is possible. It begins with one small act, the decision to refuse shame's dominion. You are more than your wounds. You are more than the voices that told you to hide. You are a radiant being, deserving of love and belonging just as you are. The moment you embrace this truth, your life begins to shift. You step into your power, not the power of dominance or control, but the power of authenticity. This power is quiet but fierce. It is the power of presence, vulnerability, and radical acceptance. This power transforms not only you but the world around you. As you continue this journey, carry these words with you. You are not broken. You are not a mistake. You are alive. You are worthy. You are whole. And you are free.